Welcome dear student and Jai Swaminarayan. In the previous video, we were discussed about a human eye, structure of the human eye and the working of the human eye. And from that, we were understand about how we can see the object. Right? When the rays of the light are entering from our eye, with the help of the eye lens, the rays of the light are refracted and image will be formed on the retina. And in the retina, rods and cones, two types of the cells are there. They convert the optical signal into the electrical signal and transfer to the brain. And the brain processing these signals and send a message to the eye, then we can see the object, right? So these all the things, right? In the human eye, the most important point is the eye lens, right? So eye lens is made up of the fibrous jelly like material, and its focal length can be changed according to the vision, right? If you want to see the far object, the focal length should be a smaller and the radius of curvature should be a less. And for that we can change with the help of the ciliary muscles, the focal length and the radius of the curvature will be changed with the help of the ciliary muscles, and we can see the image, and the image will be formed on the retina. And we were discussed about the power of the accommodation. What do you mean by the power of the accommodation? The ability of the eye lens to form an image on the retina is called the power of the accommodation. So for the most distinct and clear and comfortable object to see a object clearly and comfortably, the image should be formed on the retina, right? Behind the retina, if the image will be formed in front of the retina or behind the retina, we cannot see the image, and we can say that the power of accommodation of the eye lens will be lost. So if the power of accommodation of the eye lens is lost, the person cannot see the object, and this is called the defect of vision. So dear student, in this video we will see the different defects of the vision and their correction, how we can correct this defect of the vision or defect of the eyes, right? You know that આપણને બધાને ખબર છે કે જ્યારે આપણા આંખને દૂરની વસ્તુ ના દેખાતું હોય ત્યારે દૂરના ચશ્માની જરૂર પડે છે, નજીકની વસ્તુ ના દેખાતી હોય તો એના નજીકના ચશ્માની જરૂર પડે છે. તો એ વિઝન આપણું જે ક્લિયર નથી, એ વિઝનને ક્લિયર કરવા માટે આપણે કેવું કરેક્શન કરીશું એ આપણે આ વિડીયોની અંદર શીખવાનું છે. સો વોટ આર ધ ડિફરન્ટ ટાઈપ્સ ઓફ ધ ડિફેક્ટ પ્રોડ્યુસ ઇન અવર આઈ and how we can correct this defect, right? So let us see the defect of the vision and their correction. So sometimes the eye may gradually lose its power of accommodation. The eye lens lost its power of accommodation and the person cannot see the object clearly and comfortably. Far object always a near object, right? Some person cannot see the far object, some person cannot see the near object, જેને આપણે કહીએ છીએ કે દૂરના ચશ્મા આયા, નજીકના ચશ્મા આયા, હવે આપણે વાત કરીએ છીએ. So this, if the power of accommodation is lost, the person cannot see the object clearly and comfortably, and the vision becomes a blur due to the refractive defects, right? So the vision, we can see the blur objects, right? All the image will be formed on a blur object, and this is called the defect of the vision, right? So if the power of accommodation of the eye lens may be a lost, and because of this the person cannot see the object clearly and comfortably, right? We can say that the defect, the vision cannot be clear by the person, and this is called the defect of the vision. Dear student, here there are three most common defect of the vision are there. First one is the myopia, or we can say that the nearsightedness. Second one is the hypermetropia, or we can say that the far-sightedness, and third one is the presbyopia, right? So there are three different types of the defect of the vision. produced in a eye, right? First one is the myopia, or we can say that the nearsightedness. Second one is the hypermetropia, or we can say that the far-sightedness. And third one is the presbyopia. All the defects can be corrected by the use of the suitable spherical lens. Which type of the lens we use for the different defect of the vision, we will see later on in this video, right? So myopia, hypermetropia and presbyopia, for there we use the different spherical lens with the suitable focal length. So dear student, let us discuss first defect of the vision, that is a myopia. Dear student, first of all, in our normal condition, the object, the image of the object should be or must be formed on the retina to see a clear object, right? So here if we consider the far point of the myopia eye, object is placed at a point O and the rays coming from the point O after refracting by a lens, it will be form an image on a retina. But instead of this, if the image will be formed in front of retina or behind the retina, we cannot see the object clearly. We can see the blur image of the object, and this is called the defect of the vision. So first defect is the myopia or the nearsightedness. So in the myopia or nearsightedness, if the far object, the rays coming from the far object produces an image in front of the retina, before the retina, so we cannot see the far image of the far object with our eye, and this defect is known as the myopia defect, right? So how we correct this myopia? So myopia can be corrected by a suitable concave lens with the proper focal length. So we use a concave lens to produce an image on the retina. So dear student, understand what is the myopia. So myopia, the person cannot see the far object, the person can see the near object clearly, and this defect is known as the myopia or nearsightedness, right? So myopia is a defect of vision in which a person can see nearby object clearly but cannot see the distant far object clearly because the image is formed in front of the retina. The image is formed in front of the retina. Look at this second figure, myopia eye, right? The object is far from the eye and the rays coming far from the eye are parallel to each other, and after reflection it will meet before the retina, in front of the retina. So here the image will be produced in front of the retina, and so with that we cannot see the far object clearly and the person can see the near object clearly. એને આપણે શું કહીએ છીએ? દૂરના ચશ્મા કહીએ છીએ કે દૂરની વસ્તુ આપણને દેખાય નહીં. એ ડિફેક્ટને આપણે શું કહીશું? માયોપિયા ડિફેક્ટ કહીશું, બરાબર? So myopia defect is maybe due to the increase in the curvature of the eye lens. So the eye lens, the curvature of the eye lens, or we can say that the focal length of the eye lens cannot be decreased in a suitable form, in a proper form. This defect will be produced. So myopia defect may be due to the increase in the curvature of the eye lens, or we can say that the increase in the length of the eyeball, right? Myopia defect will be produced, and in that myopia defect the convex lens should not be proper thick or thin, right? So એ જે છે એની focal length properly decrease ના થતી હોય, increase ને increase રહેતી હોય, તો એના કારણે આપણે શું થાય છે? આ myopia defect produce થાય એમ કહેવાય. So dear student, myopia is the defect of vision in which the person can see the nearby object clearly but cannot see the distant object clearly, right? Because the image in the myopia, the focal length, the lens is not properly thick, right? So ciliary muscles cannot contract properly, and due to this the lens becomes a thin and thin. So the increase in the curvature of the eye lens and due to this the image will be formed in front of the retina, and we cannot see the object is at a distance, at a far object we cannot see clearly, but we can see the near object clearly, right? So this defect is known as the myopia. So how this myopia can be corrected? The myopia can be corrected using a suitable concave lens with the suitable focal length, right? So with the help of the focal length, the suitable focal length of the concave lens, we can correct the myopia, right? So dear student, if જો તમારે દૂરના ચશ્મા હોય તો દૂરના ચશ્માની અંદર જે લેન્સ છે એ લેન્સ કયો હશે? તમારો કોન્કેવ લેન્સ હશે, બરાબર? કેમ? કારણ કે તમને કઈ ડિફેક્ટ છે? માયોપિયાની ડિફેક્ટ છે. ઓર વી કેન સે ધેટ ધ નિયર સાઇટનેસ ડિફેક્ટ. નિયર ઓબ્જેક્ટ clearly we can see the clearly, and far object we cannot see clearly. This defect is known as the myopia defect. Understand? Now second defect is a hypermetropia or far-sightedness, right? For the normal, the image will be formed on the retina, but if the lens should be a thick, it becomes not becomes a thin, right? જો લેન્સ તમારો થીક જ રહેતો હોય અને થીન ના થતો હોય તો જે ઓબ્જેક્ટ છે, નિયર ઓબ્જેક્ટની ઇમેજ છે એ બિહાઇન્ડ ધ રેટિના, ઇટ વિલ બી ફોર્મ બિહાઇન્ડ ધ retina, right? So hypermetropia is the defect of the vision in which the lens should not become a thin, right? It will be a thick as well as thick, right? જો લેન્સ તમારો thick જ રહેતો હોય, thin થતો ના હોય, તો તમે નજીકની વસ્તુ જે છે, નિયર ઓબ્જેક્ટ છે, એ ક્લિયરલી જોઈ શકો નહીં. It will be form a blur image. Why? Because of the decrease in the curvature of the eye lens and because of the decrease in the length of the eyeball, right? We can say that. So the image will be formed behind the retina and we cannot see the object clearly. This defect is known as the hypermetropia. So what is the hypermetropia? Hypermetropia, or we can say that the far-sightedness, is the defect of vision in which a person can see the distinct object clearly. A person can see a far object clearly, but cannot see a nearby object clearly, right? Near object, person cannot see the near object clearly, because in this hypermetropia defect the image will be formed behind the retina, right? This is due to the decrease in the curvature of the eye lens. The curvature of the eye lens is a small, not a increase, right? So decrease in the curvature of the eye lens, the hypermetropia defect will be formed on the eye and decrease in the length of the eyeball. So dear student, in the hypermetropia the person can see the distant object, far object clearly, and the near object, person cannot see the nearby object clearly. The person can see the near object, blur image of the near object, and this defect is known as the hypermetropia, or we can say that the far-sightedness, right? So how we can correct this defect of the vision? So the hypermetropia or far-sightedness can be corrected by using a convex lens with a suitable focal length. જો તમને નજીકના ચશ્મા હશે તો એ નજીકના ચશ્મામાં તમારો લેન્સ કયો હશે? કોન્વેક્સ લેન્સ હશે. So with the help of the convex lens we can correct a hypermetropia defect of the vision. Understand dear student, hypermetropia. In the hypermetropia the person can see a distant object clearly, right? Far object clearly, but cannot see the nearby object clearly, and this defect can be corrected with the help of the convex lens with the suitable focal length. So third defect of vision is the presbyopia. What is the presbyopia? And the ability of to see the object clearly and comfortably is depends on the focal length of the lens, or we can say that the radius of the curvature of the lens, right? And the radius of curvature, the ability to form an image or to see the nearby object and the distant object clearly is called the power of accommodation. Here, dear student, the power of accommodation of the eye is decreases with aging. As your age is increases, the power of accommodation is decreasing because of the weakness in the ciliary muscles. Right? The weakness in the ciliary muscles decrease the power of accommodation. It will decrease the ability of the or to see the object which is far or a nearby object, right? So presbyopia is a defect of vision in a old people in which they are not able to see the nearby object clearly due to the increase in the distance of the near point. So for the old age people, the defect of vision will be produced, most probability is a presbyopia. In this defect, the person cannot able to see the nearby object clearly because of the near point of the person will be increased, right? So this defect is known as the presbyopia. This is due to the weakening of the ciliary muscles. Due to the ciliary muscles can be weak as the age of the person is increases, and decrease in the flexibility of the eye lens. It can be corrected by using a suitable convex lens. So presbyopia is a defect produced in the old people, right? As the age of the person is increases, right, the person cannot able to see the nearby object clearly due to the increase in the distance of the near point, or weak ciliary muscles may be a weak for the person, and the decrease in the flexibility of the eye lens. So how the presbyopia defect will be reduced, right? The presbyopia defect can be corrected by using a suitable convex lens, right? Understand? So sometimes for the old people, sometimes a person may suffer from the both myopia and the hypermetropia. So in the presbyopia, a person suffers from the both myopia as well as the hypermetropia, રાઈટ સો નજીકની વસ્તુ પણ બરાબર ના દેખાતી હોય અને દૂરના ઓબ્જેક્ટ બી બરાબર ના દેખાય એટલે બંને ચશ્મા હોય. સો ધીસ ઇફેક્ટ ઇઝ produced, or this defect will be formed on the person at a very old age, right? So sometimes a person may suffer from both the myopia and the hypermetropia. Therefore they are not able to see the both nearby objects and the distant object clearly, right? So if the person suffer both the myopia and hypermetropia, the person are not able to see both the nearby object as well as the distance object as well as the far object clearly. So how this type of the presbyopia can be corrected? It can be corrected by using a bifocal length, right? Bifocal lens, right? The presbyopia, or if the person suffer from both the myopia and hypermetropia, the effect will be, the defect will be corrected by using a bifocal lens which has both the concave as well as the convex lens. Bifocal lens, that means a combination of the concave lens as well as the convex lens. The upper part of the lens is a concave for the correction of the distant vision, and the lower part of is a convex for the correction of the near vision. So bifocal lens consists of both the lens, concave lens as well as the convex lens. So upper part of the lens is a concave lens and the lower part of the lens is a convex lens. So upper part correct the vision of the distant object, right, and the lower part correct the vision of the near object. So dear student, understand all the three types of the defect of the vision. First one is the myopia, second one is the hypermetropia, and third one is the presbyopia, right? Now sometimes a person having a defective cone cells, right, on the retina, we know that on the retina there are two types of the cells, rods and the cone cells. Rod cells detect the intensity of the light while the cone cells detect the color of the light incident on it, right? So a person having a defective cone cells, right? If the cone cells of the person is a defective, the person is not able to distinguish between the different color. The person cannot distinguish the different colors. It cannot be identify the different colors, right? So this defect is known as the color blindness, right? So this is the one. Another type of the defect produced in our eye is a color blindness. If the person cannot differentiate the different colors, right, because of the weakness in a defective cone cells, right? Rod cells detect the intensity of the light while the cone cell detects the color of the light. And if the person having a defective cone cell, the person is not able to differentiate the different color, and this defect is known as the color blindness. So dear student, I hope that you understand all the defect of the vision produced in our eye and how we can correct with the suitable spherical lens. So myopia can be corrected with the help of the concave lens, hypermetropia can be corrected with the help of the convex lens, and the presbyopia can be corrected with the help of the bifocal length, right?